Okay, hi, I'm Paul, teaching, this is the winter designs, winter season. So you design your planting. And what I mean is that you pick an area, like let's say that's the area, and then you set it aside. That one I would make a little raised planter bed. But if you have an area, you get rid of the weeds, get rid of all the junk, and then you start preparing the soil. And then in the spring, that's when you do planting. And then the next class will be spring, and we'll talk about planting seeds. But this thing, I put it in clips like this because there's certain sheets in here. You should put it into, sheet protectors. Like, so you want to protect some of these things because there's some of these things here are good basic steps to remind yourself on, and like the planting season. So that's why I didn't staple it. So you could. Certain things are pretty interesting, so you could clip it onto the wall or something, or you could access it, okay? All right, the principles, okay. During this, before you start planting, you need to have good soil. It says you don't grow plants, soil makes the plants grow. So you have to prepare the soil. You put more energy. Farmers put more energy into the soil. Planting is just what happens. That's the byproduct of hard work. So this is when you do the hardest work. You prepare your soil, and I'll go along in how you soil. And the second thing is you copy nature. And by copying nature, you want to use the sun, water, and the soil and nutrients. That's copying nature. You don't want to use chemicals. You don't want to use artificial means. You want to use the natural means that things grow. And a lot of companies are growing tomatoes indoors, but they're using the same techniques of nature, only they're creating certain spectrums of light. Like they're growing tomatoes right now in warehouses, and they use computer designed lights, a certain spectrum of the light has that, there's different colors, and they blend it together and they shine on the tomatoes, and it really works. So that's why you get some of these really gourmet tomatoes year-round, because they can grow them with that special light. And that light really is the same thing as nature. They're copying nature. And so also, when in doubt, ask someone or look it up, Google it, or just listen to Federal, or listen to all these programs that people read up on it. It's really interesting about how things grow. And when you see something from nothing, like a little seed growing, just like a little child, you see something really come out to fruition, you really feel good. And when you eat it, you're very, very, very happy. Oh, thank you. It tastes good. So what's principle one? Growing good soil. If you test your soil, you use this tester here. You can buy it over there. And this tests the pH. In other words, the calcium, the nitrogen, phosphorus, and calcium, NPK. And this is you put the soil in this capsule, and you put a little water and you shake it, and it tells you on the back what area you are, what pH balance is. So if you want to grow tomatoes, you need to have a high nitrogen, and that's what if you want to grow great tomatoes, the bigger the tomato, the more nitrogen tomatoes need. So you add nutrients, soil organic material, organisms, and then this soil builds all the plants up. So if you want to grow something really good, you have to understand what you need in your soil. But if you have your balanced soil with all the nutrients in there and make it a very homogeneous environment like nature, things will grow. And then soil building. Okay, it says cover your soil. This is what I did. I had some really clay soil at my wife's grandmother's house. So I covered everything with about a foot of horse manure. And that's like everything. That's bare soil, and I cover with horse manure. You could cover with dead mulch, straw leaves, wood, living mulch, hairy vetch. That's like a ground cover. But when you cover the soil, you let the organisms multiply, and they break down the soil. The soil is loamy, sandy, it becomes loamy. If the soil is clay, it becomes very loamy. So you cover it because the sun, this is a desert. and the desert cooks the soil. So if you cover it, you let the organisms develop, grow, multiply, they will change the soil. And I guarantee you they've done it for me. And then here you compost. And then here are soil builders. Borash, Comfrey. Comfrey is a good for, don't eat it. All these others that you could eat. Comfrey is for pain, joints. Jerusalem artichoke, you can make booze out of it. Nasturtium is a plant, you could eat it, it's very pretty, and rhubarb is like a celery. But you put these soil builders, and they buy all these, if you put them in, you put these next to, they say plant these next to your tomatoes, because these produce nitrogen and the beneficial organisms necessary for tomatoes. And leaves, grass trimmings, tea bags, that's all stuff that you put in your compost bin. They break down and they make, and the organisms, the becomes biodegradable. And earthworms, if you have everything covered, everything's moist, earthworms will multiply. And when you get a scoop of soil and you see it and there's earthworms, man, your soil is healthy, because earthworms don't want to live in a soil that's no nutrients or nothing. So when you see earthworms in your soil soil is getting better, and it's even not as good. If you see nothing in there, like a desert, you won't find an earthworm in a desert. Earthworms won't exist there, because earthworms are really good for the soil, because how earthworm works, they're constantly moving, and that's how they survive. They're always moving, and they're always turning over the soil. They're turning their soil, and their excrement or whatever, their byproducts, that's good for bioorganisms. And right here is a real, these two sheets, I like these two sheets. They're it was for children, but it's really like the soil lasagna. Last time I talked about lasagna method of making your soil. Well, that's what I'm doing right now. I had the soil, I took all the weeds out, my planting area, and I put a layer of peat moss. Peat moss is from Canada. Peat moss is like compost. And I put a layer on it, and then the heavy rains hit, and it soaked through and it dissolved into the soil. Now I'm going to put a layer of horse manure, and then by the time of about 4 weeks, I'm going to plant. And then when you do lasagna, like here, you put all these layers. You could use this, this lasagna could be used when you use a raised planter bed, and you use a cardboard box or cardboard, and you put a layer of cardboard, put a layer of manure, put a layer of potting soil, put a layer of compost, more compost, dry leaves, and you mix it up. And you let it sit for a while, you cook it, let it sit, and you're ready for planting. It takes about 4 weeks, but that's the lasagna style. That's the lasagna recipe. You put layers and layers. When you have the lasagna style going, don't turn it over. The worst thing I learned the hard way, you leave it alone. It's already established itself. The medium is perfect, so you just dig a hole and put the plant in there. And we'll talk about more about plant putting the pot. Put them in the soil right there, because you don't want to upset the apple cart, because it's got a balance there, and things will grow because you've already created. Because the world creates on balance. When there's always upheaval, things don't grow. Like tropicals, nothing turns over there, but it's just layer upon layer, things falling down, all the leaves, mulching, and then the soil is beautiful. So that's the same principle you want to do. And then on the backside, the successful planting recipe. This is really good too. Fish emulsion and mycorrhizae. Mycorrhizae, you can order that through Amazon, which I'm going to order through Lynn. That is good it's a fungi, and it helps for tomatoes, or if you have a apple tree or a tree, you put that in there. Like Denise's tree, a lemon tree, it must have a great fungi system, because she produces a lot of lemons. It produces a lot of lemons, so it must have a good soil fungi system, right? They do. Yeah, if you dig it out, I'm sure you'll find a good soil. So you put this little, if you read this here, and you put a little bit in there, and try it and see if it works, and it makes your tomatoes. And the fish emulsion.
What is this micro?
You can order that through Amazon.
Oh, Amazon. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
You said horse manure. Is it the same as steer manure? You know, that, like Comfrey?
Oh, you mean cow manure? No, cow manure stinks.
Yeah.
Horse manure doesn't. Horse manure has a urine smell, but it dries up, no smell. Yeah, because cows have two stomachs, and then they regurgitate. So that's why it smells really bad. You know, when you go up to
Buy that just at like Home Depot?
What
Have,
the-
horse manure?
no, you just get it free.
Oh, you mean you gotta go dig up the horse? You mean you go
Well, I
to
do.
Anita and get it? You mean you pick up horse? That's the horse manure?
Yeah, it's free. In fact, they'll love you. Come on back. Okay. Anyway, this is and then the fish emulsion. That's another thing I was using, fish emulsion. And you put that fish emulsion, you put a little bit into water, and very soluble, and then you put it in there, and then it really, really helps your soil. So these three basic things right here is really to follow these principles right here, and you become a master gardener. Yeah. No. You don't have to use all three. Yeah. See, what I used was last year I had the great tomatoes. A lot of people had bug problems, but I didn't. I was fortunate. But what I did is I prepared the soil with a lot of horse manure. I let it sit and it rained, and then I put the plants in, and then I dumped water, 5 gallons mixed with worm juice. Yeah, because you have to make your own.
I think I saw it on your video. You make your worm food.
Yeah. And then you pour it on there, and then somehow it's a natural herbicide. Bugs don't like it. Insecticide and herbicide. A lot of people had mites. I didn't have any mites at all. In fact, a lot of, huh? What's that? Oh yeah, you could substitute micro-ISA, or you could substitute fish emulsion for that worm juice. But I use the worm juice because somehow the worm juice keeps red mites away, or white flies away, or other crazy insects.
And the gardener.
Okay, so this is a really good. Then here it talks about your soil, and if you have a loamy soil, that's the soil where you can just stick it in there. In other words, you could tell if your soil is loamy if you just go like this with the weeds and it comes right out. When you have to use a pick to get them out, your soil is very clay, and sandy. The water stays on the top. It's like a duck's back. So loamy soil, when you pour water and it settles through the soil, that's good. If you have a clay soil, it settles on the surface. If you have a sandy soil, it settles on the surface. And so that's not good, because roots, you want the soil to go all the way, water to go all the way down, so the roots search for the soil, so then it become deep-rooted. And that's why you put amendments into the soil. That's why you use compost, and that's why, because the organisms break down the soil, make the soil loamy. So the soil's healthy. It's good soil, like I said in the beginning. You make good soil, everything comes natural. It's fun to watch things grow like that. And then, yeah, you can. You could do that, but you need to plants like tomatoes if you want to. And if you have a real tomato that you like, really pretty tomato, you want to use a lot of nitrogen, because they're really heavy nitrogen users, tomatoes. So when the next class, I'll show you how to do the tomatoes and how to use the right techniques and little tricks I learned from mistakes. And if things die, you learn. You say, oh, what did I do wrong? See, don't get discouraged. I mean, just keep going and keep doing it, because that's a learning experience. Because I killed a lot of things. Hey, how come it died? Like, for a good example is shishito. Oh, I love shishito, so I'll grow shishito plant. And I did something wrong, because I only got one shishito, and then I saw a picture. You should have like a Christmas tree of So, yeah, you know, I had one, see, so I said, this is, I got to grow how many plants to grow one shishito? No, see, you learn, see, so don't get discouraged, it's kind of fun, you get funny stories afterwards.
Paul, what about just, how we see if you don't have a yard, you have just build a kind of like a wooden, planter?
Yeah, we raised planter bed, yeah, you could do that.
Like that?
Oh, that's why I said, you make a raised planter bed, you could buy at Home Depot, it's a brick, I did it for Brandon. You make a brick corners like that, and you get a treated 2x6 wood, and you saw it. And then you measure it, and you make it like 6 feet by 4 feet. And it's about this high. And then he did it on top of concrete, his asphalt, his driveway. And then he put a layer of cardboard. I put a thick layer, about 6 inches. And then he put, like I said, compost, potting soil, peat moss, and more potting soil. And nutrients, like I told him to put in fish emulsion, and he let it sit, and he was growing bitter melon, tomatoes, squash, eggplant, everything out of that. And he's very diligent. He intertwines everything. I mean, he hangs it like this. It's really like, even I'm like,
It's in a planter?
yeah, on the concrete,
On the concrete. Oh, okay.
yeah. So you could grow anything like that, but the main thing is put a thick layer of cardboard. He followed everything I said, and it really worked. So you could put a raised planter bed anywhere. In fact, I learned that from doing volunteering for these elementary schools, Herbert Elementary and Evergreen Elementary. Yeah, we did it on asphalt. Yeah. So anyway, the thing is, you enrich your soil with compost. Type of soil, organics. Compost, manure, horse, cow, any kind of chicken manure. Green manure. Green manure is, you could buy that. That's what farmers use. They feed the ecosystem. But that's expensive. And grass clippings. Grass clippings is very tricky. Grass clippings become very matty, and then they get stuck together. So I don't care for grass clippings, and grass clippings kind of stink after a while. So I always throw that into the compost bin. And that's what gives the odor at the dump, is the grass. Okay, organic material. Okay, here in California, we're a desert, so our organic material is very low. So you got to the highest organic material is north of us, but we are in a desert area, so we have to constantly amend our soil. You can't let it go by, because we don't have our nature here is windy, it's hot, it's dry, so you have to replenish it periodically. So you can't take your soil for granted. You have to constantly work your soil. And if you see things on sale, like soil amendments, buy it. If you get horse manure, I always put horse manure because it's cheap, it's free. And then one thing nice about horse manure is if there's a slope and I put a lot of horse manure, when it rained, none of the water drained off the soil, so it prevents the soil runoff. But it evaporates and it dissolves into the soil, and then microorganisms just multiply. And you could take a shovel and dig out the soil, and you'll see the change in the soil. It's amazing what horse manure does. And here is they always talk about pH. pH, you always have to check yourself. The best pH is neutral, between 6.5 and 7.5. That's the neutral range. Even for humans, we should be in that range. If we're acidic and we're alkali, we have some illnesses, but we're okay if we are in that range. So, but here are all the necessary nutrients needed. And if you can see the range, it's right there. So if it's too acidic, you have too much nitrogen, too much. So you need to have a balance. So everything in life is a balance. And so nutrients, okay, here are the 16 necessary nutrients: nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus, NPK. And then after that is calcium. Calcium is necessary for tomatoes. If you have a thing called blossom end rot, in other words, the bottom of your tomato turns kind of yucky, you're lacking in calcium. So I always throw in some eggshells or throw in some calcium and manganese and sulfur. If you have those top 6, you're okay for growing many things. These others are real minute, but they're necessary. It's interesting, like molybdenum, MO. That's very interesting. It's in everything, but it's very small and trace. But these are all the soil nutrients needed for planting. So if you don't have those nutrients, things won't grow. And the next one here is Ralph's. I got this from Ralph's. It's really interesting. It says, it tells you that if you grow nitrogen, like peas and beans, they're nitrogen creating. And also, they said use fish emulsion. The ancient people, the Egyptians, they used fish emulsion. So when I peel the shrimp, I throw it into my compost bin to put. It breaks down because it's fish and nutrients. And then also, it's very interesting when the pilgrims came over, they did not use fertilizers. But even growing, they had good soil. But if you don't use fertilizers, you don't get diseases. It's really strange, really strange. So that's really interesting. So that's why you use natural things. That's why I use worm juice, right? Because I don't want the diseases, and it's true. I don't get the diseases. And then the last thing is where your brother lives, Lynn. You see that? 1 teaspoon, you have 6 million bacteria, 10,000 protozoa. That is really a rich area where he lives up there, Santa Maria Valley. And then they grow a lot of things up there, right? Because 1 teaspoon. So that's what you want to create in your soil is that. So anyway, and so next one is you inspect and investigate. And this is all pests. I love pests. I love these little guys. Ladybugs, praying mantis, lacewing. It's fun to watch them when they go after the bugs. And if you have ladybugs, they'll get rid of all your whitefly. And so that's integrated pest management, is that instead of using chemicals and sprays, you bring other guys that are hungry. And ladybugs, you could buy them in a store and then spread them on your aphids. And when the aphids are all gone, they leave. They look for other food. And they're voracious eaters. If you have the time, or if you can watch, you're lucky, you watch them go after it, and they eat them like crazy. It's like candy to them. So,
Candy.
yeah, well, the way they eat it.
So Paul, I have a question. So we spray our, we tend to spray our things, our because of the bugs. Is that not good for ladybugs?
Not good for,
The ladybugs don't come around.
I know, I don't
plus the chemicals.
Yeah, and then what you're doing is you're creating imbalance, because the good bugs won't come around, and the bad bugs say, hey, the chemicals are gone, I'm back again. See, so, but in the long run, even chemicals is not good for your health too, see, so they said there's a test. You hold a chemical bottle like this, right, and then you hold it like this, a bottle, and then try to resist. And you can't.
Yeah,
but if you hold something that's healthy, you could resist.
You've got these bugs that you eat your plants and everything, you see eating your.
See, yeah, that's why you got to create an environment that follow nature, and so.
Can you use soapy water?
Yeah, soapy water.
Yeah.
Because that's no chemicals, soapy water.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, soapy water makes like Dawn dish soap. You put that on there, and then it clings it. It clings to the bugs
What is the measurement of say soapy water?
after you wash your dishes.
I just use that one.
Dishwater. I use that.
Can you, like when you cut up a fish, like the heads and the bones and the skin?
Throw that in the soil.
We used to do that. In fact, my dad did that. He used to do a lot of fishing. I remember him doing that, putting it in.
Yeah, you see, they were saying that Judy's dad used to get the cut and fillet the fish and throw the bones and the head into the soil. And I've done that. I got old fish or something like that, and I throw it in there, and it breaks down, and you'll see a bunch of worms. You'll see a lot of insects, a lot of bugs, and it makes the soil. And those little guys change. If you use chemicals, they don't change the soil. They're not there to change the soil. See, God put these little pesky, these pests for a purpose. They're nature's natural composters. So that's why you don't want to use chemicals to get rid of them. And here's a picture of all of them. This is the food chain like this. It starts up the big guys and little guys, and the small guys is like fungus and mold and all that. And then these guys eat it, and then they're eating. So you need this food web chain. And this is when you use chemicals or spray, you cut that food web chain, and so you get a lot of fungus, you get a lot of mold, because there's no other bugs to eat it, and then you don't have other bugs eating the other bugs.
That's how you get mushrooms in your garden.
Yeah.
That's bad.
Well, that's overwatering, but then if you don't, this food, this if you understand this, you look on the bottom, and this goes up to here. They eat the mold, the fungi, and then they do their thing, and then the bigger guys eat the little ones, and then the birds eat the big ones. But if you put poison like that, then you cut the food chain. That's why I also put in a bird house, because then they go after the bugs too. So they keep your garden in balance. So that's following nature's style. Here's some more beneficials. Ladybugs. It's a hornet bee, and it lays its eggs into the hornworms, the ones that go after your tomatoes, and then they open up when they hatch, and then they eat the host. It's really interesting, beneficials.
How about, we used to call them multiple, but the lip one that goes into a ball.
Yeah, roly-polies.
Those are bad, right?
Like potato bugs?
No, not potato bug.
Yeah.
Yeah, sow.
For the soil.
Yeah, they're good for the soil. You know who loves them? It's chickens. I had a rooster, man. He ate every one of them in my yard. Yeah.
Our neighbors
Is it
would have a
okay to
fit.
have a bunch of those in a pot? I saw.
Oh, yeah, it's okay. You know, nature, bugs are good for your yard. I mean, they're aerated, they eat things up. They're composters. They're breaking things down. They break down your soil. They break down your leaves. They break the... Oh, well, I don't know. When we had a rooster, man, we'd have no more bugs like that. So we had to we were kind of like, it was kind of cut the cycle. But, we use his manure.
You make a rooster?
Huh? No. He was a great pet. And then this is a copy nature. You know, this picture right here of this garden like this is really hard to maintain.
Let's see. What page?
Everybody wants this kind of they want this kind of garden, but it's really hard to maintain. It's really hard to maintain. No,
Yeah, really? Come on.
no, man. That's too hard to maintain because you have to mow the lawn, you have to edge it and all that stuff. We have it at one house, I hate it, it's work. It's too much work. But anyway, when you select a control method, cultural, habitat, physical, and biological controls, these are all natural controls. And you want to start with no chemicals, low toxicity chemicals, but basically use what nature gave us. And that's basically what you want to do. So you don't want to. And then here's you evaluate, you can read that, but in other words, you keep a record of it, take pictures of things that, like if something's not doing right, something's not growing right, take a picture of it and then send it around, and somebody will answer it. Somebody will come and say something like that. That's part of the Master Gardener program. Somebody sends out a picture, my tomatoes look like this, and then somebody says, hey, I had that problem and I did this. So that's how you educate yourself. And then you're learning. Gardening is always learning. You're always learning. And it's a very healthy way to learn, too, because the virus, our coronavirus, does not exist in sunlight. And when you're in sunlight and you're touching the soil, you're touching Earth, your Mother Earth, you're really energizing your body. So this is a good way to learn stuff, educate yourself, and it's always a learning thing. And then, like I said, if you fail, you learn something. You know not to do it. And if it doesn't work, then you look for ways to make it work. And then when it works, then you tell other people. And that's part of sharing and learning. And here's your general growing tips. water late afternoon. Don't water in the hot sun because everything evaporates. And I like watering early in the morning because then no rot will occur, and all the water gets soaked and it gets oh yeah. And any mulch, and then use a lot of mulch, like horse manure or wood chips or something like that, to keep the soil cool and keep whatever you water, the moisture is retained inside the soil. And that causes good air circulation and fertilizer. Don't over-fertilize. That's the key factor. Don't over-fertilize. Well, this extra sheet, that's already in there, but. And then I have this here tomato care sheet. I'm not going to go into that. That's for our next class. And then, oh, here it is, like this Burpee planting guide. This is where you put into your sheet protectors. You know, this gives you for your flowers and for veggies, the months to plant. So you can look at that.
Okay, so you said water late in the afternoon?
Yeah, you can, but don't the late afternoon or early morning, because if you water like right now, everything evaporates and only have time for the water to get soaked into the soil. And here's another one. I went to a fern class, and this tells you how to grow ferns for people that want to grow ferns. And the plants for shady spots, these are different plants for shady spots. People have, usually the north side of your house is a shady spot because the sun sets west, and so that one side, that's where you put your hydrangeas and your camellias and things like that on the shady side. And then this one is here, Hayward's Hay Grounds Magic Dust. These are things that you could utilize to enhance when you plant your plants, like I'm going to show right now. Oh, see this tray right here? This is a seed tray. And what I did was I first put potting soil halfway, and then I put a seed in here. And then I marked it, I labeled it. So the first 5 is tomatoes. I put, let's see, where is it?
Just a itty bitty tiny seed you dropped in there.
Yeah, it was like it's tough. Yeah, very tough. Women are good at that. That's why when you go, I went to a place where they do that. It's all Hispanic women, man. They got their little machine.
Really? Is that what they do?
Yeah, they put them into these trays,
Really?
and it got half filled with soil, potting soil, and they fill them up. And then they cover it with the rest of the soil, and then they spray it. They spray it, and then they put, well, it's a machine that sprays it, and it's under heat. And then they say, put this in plastic. I put this in plastic bag. And then you put it in the sun, and then you wait like 3 to 4 weeks, and then you see a little thing come out. And then when it gets about this high, then you just scoop it out and put it into a pot like this.
Oh.
And then you see these pots like this, you can use an eggshell. I mean, yeah, the egg cartons. And the egg cartons are really good because they're made out of paper. So when you take the little seedling, put it in there, and it gets a little bigger, then you just cut that little egg carton and stick the whole thing in the soil, because the egg carton biodegrades just like this. So you could do things like that. And here's our different seeds. Like this seed's tomato. Like I grew this thing. It looks just like this. It's like what Van Gogh would do, or what somebody would. It's a picture perfect tomato. It's so perfect. It's so red. It's almost like, is this real? You don't want to eat it because it looks too nice, right? But it's really a called delicious tomato, and it is very good.
Okay, what kind of potting, what did you use to start that? What did you use?
Well, just regular potting soil.
Potting soil? Okay.
Yeah, you can use that. Use that Miracle Grow. That's really they get that stimulant on it. But see, this is a mixture of worm juice in here. So I use worm juice, mixture of worm juice.
We just use water, just plain water if we don't have worm juice.
Oh, well, when you use, that's a good question. If you do that, put in some nutrients in it, like water soluble, like fish emulsion. put it in here, fish emulsion, and spray it. And then you're adding more bacteria to the soil. So what you're doing is you're enhancing the soil. And this is really like fish emulsion, only from worms. It's a lot of bacteria in here, a lot of nutrients in here.
The fish emulsion we could buy from Amazon too, or
Oh yeah, you could buy that anywhere.
but you're just plain home
Yeah.
or so?
Oh, and then another thing is, my favorite nursery is called Lincoln Nursery in Pasadena. And they have some really unusual plants. They have a tomato called Eco tomato. And that thing, I put it in the soil, it's like this small. And it grew like this big, and this wide, and it had nothing but little cherry tomatoes. I had so many cherry tomatoes. I mean, we had tomatoes and tomatoes and tomatoes, Eco. And then they sell different kind of chilies, white habaneros, red habaneros, ghost chilies, all these different kind of chili. And then they have these different, really exotic tomatoes, like heirloom tomatoes. You want to go there. It's a Lincoln Nursery. It's a really cool nursery to go into. It's kind of pricey because it's in the neighborhood, but they have stuff that you can't find anywhere. You know, if you go to Home Depot, it's Early Girl and Better Boy. These tomatoes are really like, you want, like on a sheet there, Momotaro. Another thing about tomatoes too, if you go for tomatoes, anything with color, purple, green, like Sun Gold, that's one of the sweetest tomatoes to eat. Sun Gold tomatoes, cherry tomatoes. And you also, anything like Eva's Purple Ball, black cherry, anything with color in it that's usually a sweet tomato. Those are good tomatoes to get. And then the thing is, you got to see what size they are too. If you have an area where it has 8 to 12 hours of sun, you could grow a big fat tomato. But if you have a 6 to 8, maybe you go for the medium size or the cherry tomatoes because they don't require as much sunlight. But I like cherry tomatoes because you get a lot of them. You get a lot of tomatoes, and you slice them up and put them in salads and everything else, and they're fun to eat right off the branch. But you also,
I have a question. Is Eco tomato, are you buying it are you planting it from a seed, or are you buying it
I'm buying the plant. It's EIKO, Eiko. Yeah, that's really, and it's tasty too. And Momotaro, man, that Momotaro, when you cut that, it's like cutting into a piece of steak. It's really red and juicy like a steak, so it's really tasty.
One question for somebody who's not a gardener. If we wanted to try one seed in plant, would that be a good test to see if it's okay if we don't kill it?
No, you gotta, one seed ain't gonna do it. You gotta do a bunch of seeds. Huh?
Just to see if we can let it grow.
Yeah, just try a bunch of seeds, and then just be very, very conscious of it, and don't overwater. People tend to overwater.
Yeah.
And don't overwater, right? And and when you add water, don't just add water. Add nutrients like fish emulsion into it, or worm juice, or something that blends in the water and gives it stimulate the plant like that. So there's all kinds of things. So I just want to let you know where to go. And then I want to just demo. You can grab some chilies.
There's your clip over there,
Huh?
Paul.
Oh, my clip. Well, thank you.
Pass this around.
Yep. And also, like I was telling, if you have little things like this, don't throw them away. You could cut them up, and then your pots, your plastic pots have holes on the bottom. You line the bottom, and then you put the potting soil, and then when you're wet, the water will go through, but the soil won't. So instead of throwing these away, you use these seeds. People get bags like this all the time, and they throw them away. So recycle them and then put them in pots like that, and it really works good. Another thing to use is screens. Old screens. I go to a glass store and I say, I look in the trash. Can I take them? And I take a bunch of old screen material, and then you just put it and you cut it around, and it fits perfectly, and it lasts for a long time, and it's cheaper than. It's really cheap. It's free. But you're recycling.
You're putting it in your
Yeah, like on the bottom. Like here, I put the screen here, see, because it's got holes on the bottom. So I use a regular screen. I cut it, and do the potting soil. So this is how I do. I take well, I'll just do it real quick. Everybody's in a hurry. So you put, you moisten it. I don't know why this is not working. And then you put a seed in there. Let's see, you put in some cilantro seeds. You can put a bunch of cilantro seeds, stick it in there, and then put a little more potting soil.
So it's not good to start seeds in a big pot?
Usually, yeah, you could do that too if you have a big pot and you put the whole packet in there. Yeah, like cilantro or parsley or oregano.
You have to thin it out?
No,
You just let them all just
they grow like that.
Put it in that pot like that, the one in front of you.
Oh,
That big.
no, this one, what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to let it grow, multiply. I put in cilantro because this grows fast. If you use herbs, they grow quickly. And then when it gets like this, I'll just stick this in the ground. Dig a hole and stick it in the ground. And then it biodegrades like that. So this one with tomatoes, we put squash, we put string beans, snow peas, any beans like sugar snaps, squash. The seeds are big. Tomato seeds are really small. The worst seed is eggplant. That is so tiny. That is
You always
so.
have to just put one. You can't put two in there.
Yeah, you could put a whole bunch in there.
And those little ones. In that
Yeah, because when they start coming out like that, then you got to take it out and you put it in here, and then they get bigger and bigger. And then
Yeah.
and then when they get bigger, when you take them out of the pot, you could separate them and put them in the ground.
Where do you get those little things at the nursery? I've never seen.
Oh, these things are Home Depot.
That little board.
Oh, Home Depot.
Oh, okay.
Around there, like little trays. So this came out bigger though. It was like this because I got it free from a grower. There's a guy, his name is John Mudd, and he gives out all John Mudd, and he operates out of John Muir High School, and we know him. He's a master gardener, so we know him. So we go there, and he has these big trays of, the whole area is full of trays of tomatoes, and you just take out little plugs like that and you put them in your little pot like that, and they're all like this high. It's really pretty. So that's why I took a tray like that from him. But you could buy those trays, but you can make your own too. You could do like an eggshell. You could do that eggshell and put it all the soil and put a whole bunch of seeds in it too, like that. So here's some seeds right here, and it's just right now it's a fun time to start, getting the seeds planted and then little sprouts coming up like that. And when they come out, and like last year, my wife put a whole bunch in these things. We were just taking them out and taking them out, and we had so many tomatoes, so many plants. But it's fun. It's fun to see something, and then when you eat at the meal, and it's fun when you give the tomatoes to friends or neighbors, and then they just go, "You grew this?" And you go, "Yep."
Yeah, so good. Okay, Paul. Try it.
Yeah, what can I say?
Here.
Huh?
A customer gave me a package of brown onions. Last year, a customer had a whole bunch of onions they grew.
Uh-huh.
So then I said, well, this is great because I never ran out of onions, so she kept giving me onions.
Yeah.
So she gave me a package of those onions. They're the onion bulbs. You plant it the same way. You have to start it in something small.
No. Onion bulbs, no. Bulbs. Onion, yeah, they're evasive. You should grow them in a pot.
Like a big pot like that.
No, like a big pot like that. Not like a shallow, but they're evasive. They'll grow. You're going to have onions everywhere.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Can you just plant how many?
Oh, you just throw them the seeds in there.
It's a bowl.
or whatever bulbs, just put them in there. Just put them in like that and cover in soil.
And garlic, the same thing.
Yeah,
They gave me
yeah.
garlic too.
Yeah, the onions grow like crazy.
Yeah, you see, they gave me onions for the.
Cilantro grows like crazy. Oregano, yeah. So, anyway, I have to make this. There's some seeds up here. You could. This is delicious tomato. There's some celery seeds and these cayenne pepper. You know, chili peppers are really fun to grow, and when you make them, and then you give them to your Latino friends, and then when they next time you see them, they always say, "How was the chili?" You go, "Bueno." And that means it's hot. They never say hot. They say bueno, bueno. But it's fun. And then I grew a habanero, and I took a little slice like this, and I mixed it in a salsa. Oh, I couldn't eat the salsa. Yeah.
Did you ever notice if you not so much water that it gets more karai
Yeah. Why it did dry? Yeah.
or something? Then the more you water it, it's not as
Yeah, exactly. Just like tomatoes, the more you water tomatoes too much, you kill the flavor because the acidity goes away. And then there's a thing about like light-colored tomatoes are low acidity. No, all tomatoes are acidic. So the too much watering lowers the acidity and lowers the flavor.
coffee grinds are acidic.
Oh, coffee grinds are great. Coffee grinds are great for like hydrangeas, they make things brighter colors because they're high in acid.
Camellias and
Camellias, yeah. And I like also using coffee grounds too because somehow the soil changes too. The insects that multiply, the worms, they like coffee. You know, they like coffee. I don't know why, but they like coffee grinds and they like to move around. So coffee grinds are really good for the soil. And
how about like lemon trees and grapefruit trees?
oh yeah. But you should try fish emulsion or try that Mia. But your tree is okay. I think.
Don't mess with it.
Yeah, your tree is okay.
What else? What's another thing to feed it?
Well, yeah, my coriza.
Oh,
Yeah, that I'm gonna use that. See, I'm gonna experiment. So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get my soil's ready. And I buy the plants. I'm gonna put a little bit of Mia coriza and the worm juice and put the plant in there. And another thing about tomatoes too. Well, I'll show you next time, but I'll just remind you is, the white stuff on the tomato, it's like hair. Those are roots. So when you get a plant from there, you plant it right up, like it's stem is this. You put it deep into the soil, so the roots grow out like this.
plant it deeper.
And that Mia coriza makes it go out low.
Because I always think it's plant it deep and then it turns out to be a shallow root.
Yeah. No, you got to put it deep.
Higher up the stem.
Yep.
So you got to rip off some of the branches
Right.
to get there.
And then that means the tomato plant is able to get more nutrients and more water into its system, and then it grows faster, and then it has a deeper base. So, if you get a tomato, that you have to vine them. And that's the next thing I'll talk about is vining them like that.
Crop rotation year after year. Does that matter?
Oh, you mean where the tomatoes go?
Just keep planting the same plant.
Oh no, you different spots. Tomatoes, yeah. Unless you really like in Japan, they really work on putting nitrogen. If you put nitrogen back in soil, I found out that putting the horse manure and then putting worm juice and peat moss, I've been planting over in the same spot because I just replenish the soil. But I've noticed that when I put other plants in another spot, that there was no tomatoes. Man, it's better. It grows faster. But that's how you learn your garden, how to learn your spots of your garden where the sun shines, and then you look up and you see the damn tree and some neighbor's tree, so you got to cut it so it gets some more sun because tomatoes need sun. Without sun, tomatoes. Right now, I just had a couple of I'm growing like a little winter tomato, and it's in full sun, and it's really delicious. But the tomatoes only get this big. Normally they're like this, but they're like this. It's because they only get a few hours of sun. If they had the regular sun, they get really big. But it's still tasty and it's still very delicious. So sun is a key factor for all plants too. And right now, lettuce, leafy stuff could grow anywhere, anytime. If you look at that chart, you could grow lettuce. Radishes go year-round. Radishes. We grow radishes year-round. You can grow that radishes in a pot too. So radishes and carrots year round. So anything root like that. And they said using that mycorrhizae really helps radishes, anything like a root.
Out your radish plants too, to give them more space for the radish to get bigger.
Well, how we did that, how you do that sometimes is you get a piece of masking tape, and then you get glue, and you put spots of glue, and then you throw the seed on it, and then you bury it, and then it gives you the proper spacing.
Oh my God.
If you're anal.
We should all grow something so we can have a farmer's market.
Yeah. You know, we should grow a raised plant bed right there, but I don't know. It'll be fun, and you could grow it. You could grow right here on top, right there. I did it at the school, the elementary school, at Herbert. It was all on asphalt, and about this high. And then we used synthetic wood, made from recycled plastic, and just made it. And did the principles of lasagna, and everything grew. Even I was surprised. I mean, I put the carrots in there, and I thought, okay, let's see what the carrots look like. And the big head came out, and I pull it out, and oh shit, it's like that. And, nice.
Did you ever grow pumpkins?
Yeah, by accident. Yeah, you know, because our you know, when you throw compost.
Throw a pumpkin in there.
Yeah, you throw compost and it grew. And then one time we grew like 20 pumpkins, and I said, what are those things? So they all came to fruition about this big, and then I gave them to the kids in the neighborhood. And you know what? They're old now, right? They're like in their 20s. And when I see them at the voting, they go, hey, the pumpkin man. A couple of them said, hey, the pumpkin man. I went, oh, okay. So I gave the...
I got a lot of blossoms, but they never turned into pumpkins. I was reading because it's male, female flowers.
Oh, I don't know about that, because I wasn't planning on growing pumpkins. Okay. But the thing about, okay, thanks for coming.
I'm gonna watch you on, it's gonna be on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
They have to,
Probably
they have to
tomorrow.
rerun it and watch it
Tomorrow.
again. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Very interesting.
Oh, okay, good, thanks. Yeah, it's fun. Gardening is, you know, it seems like but it's fun. I think if you get the kids interested in gardening, they remember that. Because I always remember my grandfather. He said, give me the shovel, give me this, give me a beer. You know? And then I used to give me my hat, and I gave him his hat, and then watch him dig, and then put this, and he's like, yeah, good. And I always remember that, right? It's like watching as a kid, right? So it's been sort of, I mean, you know, a cycle. So if you do something in front of your kids like that, they remember it. It's funny, they remember it, because a lot of people, they remember their parents growing stuff like that. You know, their mannerisms. So it's very, very, it's funny. It's funny how kids we remember stuff like that. But yeah, it's always my wife. She always remembers her grandmother tending to the roses. You know, real meticulously, wearing the gloves, long sleeve like that, and a hat, and this and that, cutting and saying this is pretty, and this is. Oh, and talking to the plant. So it's very, 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 very fun. Yeah.
Does she do it too?
Yeah, she does that. Yeah, that's why she likes plants.
You guys you must have your garden is stunning.
Oh man, it's too much. And then the soil is so good that we get a lot of weeds. So many weeds. So I'm always using a hammer and then digging out the weeds, But luckily the soil is good. If it's like hard clay, forget it, you know. But as you get older, man, you gotta go, and then you know, that's the hard part, is getting back up. Getting down is easy, but
Get a stool. Sit on a stool.
no, but there's no leverage. Then your back hurts, and then you get carpal tunnel.
When do you pick up your horse?
Oh, right here at Whittier Narrows.
Okay, so when are you gonna come and pick it over and bring it?
Oh, sure. Dave? No.
You bottle it and sell it?
No, you can't bottle it because it has to be aerated. If it seals, you kill the bacteria, and then it's dangerous. It becomes.
Just come and pick up some up from
No, use fish emulsion.
fish emulsion.
Yeah, use that. You can make your, Japanese guys make their own fish emulsion. They get the fish and then they put it in a, gallon jug and with water and let it cook in the sun.
Oh, God. That's just
Open top though, not sealed. So
open top. That's even worse. Got flies. And flies.
but you make your own fish emulsion like that. And then I went to this guy's a black fella. He's a celebrity chef, and he's a grandson of a slave, and when he was a little kid, he used to help his grandmother, and when she in her younger days, what she did was she got buckets, and she filled it with all the compost, all the cuttings from the food, and put water in it, and then just cover it and let it sit in this hot sun in South Carolina. And it got really, really slimy. And she had the guys dig a hole, and they dumped all that stuff in there, covered it all up, and then they changed the soil. And that's how she took a bad area and made it into a productive garden. So he follows the same principles too. So he sounds like you could take any junky soil, because she had a really bad soil, but she worked out the soil and then she made it good, and using scraps of food. I mean, not meat, but really compostable stuff, and letting Mother Nature heat and bacteria take over and break it down, and then full of bacteria, full of insects and bugs, and dump in your soil, and then it just creates a medium, and you see the soil change. And that's what horse manure is, really.
I missed your composting class, but like cut up vegetables, all the leftover that, like the skins and the cores, can you just throw it in a bucket and just leave it in a bucket until you're ready to bury it? No.
Yeah, but you should put water in it and you cover it and let it ferment.
For how long?
Yeah, till you can't stand it.
Oh, it gets stinky like
Then it's ready.
oh, it gets smelly like sewage smell, huh? Like a
Well, yeah, but smell. You don't put it near your door or anything like that. You put it next to your neighbor. I had a compost bin right above the neighbor, and they would go in the swimming pool. People lay on the.
Oh, God. Oh.
Hey, no? They were going. God, it smells like soil. So, yeah.
How big is your compost?
Well, I have two bins like this.
Bins, okay.
Yeah, and one is ready. I'm going to take it out, and that's where you have to put in bucket.
Fill that bit, yeah.
Oh man, it took like 5 years.
What?
All that stuff from Marino, from the St. Patrick's Day, I filled it up, shrunk. Fill it up, shrunk. Finally now, it just,
and it's stinky.
it's all gone. All that cabbage and the peelings, everything's gone. That's amazing. I put it in there, and then 2 weeks later come back, and it's gone. It's all the way down.
I looked in a compost bin and I
So how
screamed,
much
it's
water do you add?
yucky, it bugs and
Which kind?
I was at I don't know.
Oh yeah, but but you see,
I looked in there.
that's what compost is. It's a haven for the picture of all the bugs, everything up there. They're all existing in that compost bin. They're breaking everything down, and that's life. If you take a shovel like that, yeah, that's a lot of life in there. And so what looks yucky to us is like yummies to the plants, right? And trees. And you put that in the soil, and the soil changes real quick, like. And that's what we're trying to get back to. Instead of things going to the landfill or to the ocean, a lot of people put the garbage disposal, all that stuff goes into the ocean. They should go back into your yard. And
So
so
you're saying the compost, you're saying from St. Patrick's Day, you've had it, it's coming up, it's a year that you've had it in your,
There's nothing left.
It breaks down.
yeah,
It's
where does
nothing.
it go? Where do you put it, where does it go into your, where do you do it with it though?
Until it piles in, then he digs it out.
It is just dissolves
Okay,
because compost is mainly water.
I know, okay, so it's
And
going
so you
into
throw
your
in
dirt.
when you throw in dry leaves, you don't
Yeah.
dirt. You throw dry leaves and you turn it over, and man, that becomes soil. And then they're really, you talk about like that smell, man, that real earthy smell. That real earthy, that earthy smell, right? They ever see guys grab the earth and go, man, this is good soil, right? Farmers, they do that. They grab it, good soil, right? They grab this and they go, something's lacking. They know.
Wow.
So
You said you add a little water to that, or you just use the natural fluid from the.
yeah, like all the cabbage, that gives a lot of water. The carrot peels and the radish peels.
The natural fluid come out from the veggies.
Yeah.
So you don't add water.
What I do is when it rains, I take the top off and let Mother Nature fill it up with water. Sometimes I dump water. I'll dump, sometimes I'll throw in like a scoop full of horse manure, and horse manure really activates a lot of the worms. And then when you get worms, man, when the worm activity increases, man, everything breaks down so fast.
You need a big yard, so you could be way in the backyard.
Yeah. So I mean, today's people's yards are so small. That's why I say you put it in a bucket or something like that. I found that when I was teaching, a lot of areas that have yards, good decent yards, people would buy the compost bins, and then areas that are close to the city, people have smaller yards. They don't want to buy. They don't want a compost bin in there because they're going to run into it.
Yeah, in Alhambra, they have this big barren plot, and people rent it, and they're growing their veggies and flowers or whatever.
Yeah. Thing is about growing stuff is it's a good break from stress, and it's a good break. You sort of focus your mind on growing, and you focus your mind on like, how come it's not growing, or wow, it's growing. What am I doing right? Or then how can I expand the area, or how can I make this so? So you start thinking, and you start relieving your stress. So it's a good technique of a stress reliever because without knowing it, you're focusing your energies on something very positive. And like a compost bin, our compost bin, when I first put it there, it was on bad soil. Now when I take it out, it's like 2 feet deep because the soil got so good. So it became really healthy. So you keep scooping all that dirt. So now when it's empty, it's like this deep. So so I always tell people, if you got bad areas, when you empty it, move it to another area that's bad. And it really changes the soil. So any soil can become good just by mere composting and mere following nature's way of adding bugs and water and
Okay, you said you go to Lake or that area to get the horse manure.
yeah, Whittier Narrows.
Where, yeah, that's just there's a whole horse trail there. So what do? You just go.
Yeah, you go to Peck Road, and then you go south, and the first street is called Roosevelt. There's a truck dealership there, and then you follow that, and then it used to be really wide open. Now it's really organized. I guess the city got on them. It used to be there's this big mounds of horse manure. I used to go there any time of the day and grab it. Now you got to.
Get a shovel.
My neighbor next door, we gave him some blood oranges, and he went gaga over it. He said, "Where'd you get these from?" Here. Huh? We grew them with that blood. Yeah, blood oranges. See, so Nava oranges, blood oranges, Cava oranges, they're pretty good to grow. Yeah, so when you grow oranges, try to grow different kind of ornament. That's why I like going to that Lincoln nursery. They have different kind of, yeah. Okay, so you select some of your seeds if you want.
We have a whole bunch of coffee grounds for you.